The John Morris Show, episode 93.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hey there, my name's John Morris. I'm a former U.S. Army veteran turned freelance web developer. And my goal for you at this podcast is twofold. First, I want to help you learn how to code. Second, I want to help you turn that code into a full-time living. Because if you're like me, what you want is the freedom, the satisfaction, and the income that you get from being a high-profile web developer. So if that's you, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, or YouTube so you never miss an episode. You can find all my past episodes and get subscribed at johnmorrisonline.com/John Morris Show. Also, as you get value from the show, consider becoming a supporting listener on Patreon because you'll help keep the show free for everyone and you'll get access to exclusive courses, source code, and Q&A sessions available only to supporting listeners. Visit johnmorrisonline.com/Patreon, that's Patreon, to become a supporting listener. All right, let's get into this episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the John Morris Show, johnmorrisonline.com. Today I want to talk about the most powerful two-letter word in web development. And I can attest to the power of this word, as I'm going to get into here in a minute, because of what I went through not that many years ago. Very weird situation that, 5-10 years ago, I wouldn't have ever thought was possible that I could actually find myself in this position, but I did. And this two-letter word was my way out. So if I had a nickel for every time some random person sent me this statement via email, somebody who I've never talked to before, never met before, they'll just email me and send me this. And it says, hey, John, send me your Skype ID and let's chat. And it's in this kind of almost demanding way that they do this. Maybe you've had this happen to you. I can tell you, as you grow in your career, as you get to become more well-known, etc., you're going to get this kind of thing. People just expect that you jump on Skype or a Hangout or whatever and just chat with them, or they give you their phone number, say, hey, just call me. Or it could look like, hey, John, here's my code. And it's like this 10-page blob of code in an email. Here's my code. It's not working. Can you fix it? Or I get this one quite a bit. It says, hey, John, I really, really need web development work. Will you send me some clients? Now, if I had a nickel for every time I got one of those emails or messages, I'd be sitting on a beach somewhere slurping. If you follow my Instagram account, you'll know I'd be slurping on a tall rum and Coke, listening to some old school hip hop, what I grew up with. But my answer to all of these, not necessarily in a mean way, but my answer to all of these is no. And there's a reason for that. Because a few years ago, I was on the verge of giving up freelancing and web development altogether. And the funny thing about it, the unique thing about this, is it wasn't because I was lacking for work or income. It was actually the opposite. I had more work than I could handle. And by the end of that year, I was way burnt out. And I mean, irritable, cranky, didn't want to do anything. Procrastination. I always deal with procrastination. I think a lot of us do, but just bad. Like, I would go days at a time where I wouldn't do anything because I was so burnt out. And so I had realized this, and I'd realized where I was headed, and I ended up taking like a 2 to 3 month sabbatical at the beginning of that next year. So I told all my current clients that I wasn't taking any new work from them. I told them I was done. I wasn't taking any new work. I stopped taking new clients, And for about 2 to 3 months, I just crashed. I was so burnt out, I just crashed. And what I hadn't learned yet how to say was no. Now, and that's where it led me. And I can almost guarantee at some point in your career, you might find yourself in that same position. And that's why I bring this up, because again, at some point in your career, no will become the most important word in your vocabulary. May not seem like it now, but if you continue down this path, it will happen. And I find that so many people struggle with it. I mean, my wife has a hard time saying no to her friends and family still, and we're older in our 30s, yet she still has a very difficult time saying no to friends and family. I've noticed my kids. Now, young kids have no problem saying no. But as they've gotten older, I can see them struggle with saying no to their friends, to their siblings, it gets more difficult as they get older. And I mean, I even had a hard time with it not that long ago. So you're not alone if you've experienced this and have had a hard time saying no to things. But I'm telling you now, you've got to learn how to do it. Because the no's that you're going to have to say at some point in your career are going to be hard ones. And I mean saying no to a $3,000 project because you can tell it's not a good fit for you, or because you already have too much work, or because the client seems like they might be trouble. Those were the no's that I couldn't say that led me to get burnt out. And trust me, that is hard to do. It's very, very difficult to do. But you need to learn how to do it. Otherwise, you're going to end up like I did, overworked, overwhelmed, and on the verge of throwing it all away. And of course, that would be very bad. Now, I want to give you a little tip on how to get yourself to do this. And you can start with little things. And if you can do it this way, this very specific way, with little things that don't even have to be related to web development, the more you can get practice at doing that, then the better you'll get at it, and you'll have kind of that foundation upon which you can say no. You can say those harder no's. So the real trick I found for me is to learn how to say no without giving any reason. Just no, and that's it. No reason, no excuse, no circumstance, just no. And not offering anything beyond that. Now, that's harder than you think, because oftentimes the askers, the people who are asking you for something, will expect a reason. And they'll kind of look at you like, okay, well, why? And you don't give them one. It's that's why. Because you don't want to, period. Now, if you can start doing that with little things and not feel like you have to have a reason and an excuse to say no, that you can just own your no, that's the foundation to being able to say no to something that in your mind you probably see is good for you, but there's something that's off about it. So a new project, a new client, etc. When you can say no and not need a good reason, you just don't want to, or you have a sense about it, you really start to take ownership of your boundaries. And that's when you can start to understand what's a good fit and so forth. Now, I want you to try this. Try it today. And you'll see how uncomfortable it can be to just say no and not give the person you're saying no to a reason. But I promise you, if you can get good at that, if you can learn how to say no without giving a reason, then again, you're going to have a good foundation for later when you need to say no to one thing. And this is the point of all of this, the key, being able to say no to one thing so that you can say yes to another. That's a better fit. Now, again, you might be at a point in your career where that seems like crazy talk, where there may not be another thing to say yes to anytime soon. That's fine. You probably ought to say a few more yeses at the beginning of your career. However, there will come a point where it flips. And so you have to be able to do it. And if you haven't done it, if you haven't practiced it, it's going to be harder than you think. All right, as always, I want to make sure to give out a shout out to the supporting listeners of the John Morris Show, those supporting the show over on Patreon. I appreciate all the support that you have been giving the show, and I love chatting with all of you over on Patreon, getting to know you, answering questions, and so forth. So again, thank you. You allow me to keep doing this, allow people to continue to consume this content for free, people who really can't, really legitimately can't afford to pay for training, etc. So again, greatly appreciate all the support that you've been giving me and the entire community. If you'd like to learn more about becoming a supporting listener, you can visit johnmorrisonline.com/Patreon, Patreon. There's a lot of perks over there, some Patreon-only exclusive perks that you get that you won't be able to get anywhere else. All right, so you can check that out, johnmorrisonline.com/Patreon. All right, if you like this show, be sure to like this episode so that I know that you like this kind of content. If you know somebody who'd benefit from this and needs to learn how to say no or needs this kind of motivation and concept, I'd appreciate if you'd share it with them. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.